So I have a Kawaii animal drawing challenge for you. And the purpose of this is sort of to go through, all the creative sort of process steps and how to push you to come up with a really good character and how to, just feel free and creative and get some really great resources. So this is a practice one. And then once we do this, we're going to give you lots of freedom to kind of develop whatever kind of character you want. I wanted to look at sort of some of the things that we briefly talked about already is Kawaii body proportions. And usually when they do people, we talked about how sort of the head proportion and the body proportion is 50-50. Let's just say 60. Sometimes it's 60-40, and sometimes the head is really, really exaggerated and 70-30. And this 70-30 proportion really reminds me of like the Funko Pops and things like that. Sometimes when it comes to animals, the kind of like whole head proportion per se is like 100%, right? Or the objects, the whole, it's hard to necessarily separate like a carton of milk into a head and a body, right? So if it's an object, some of the head portion of like an object is also 100%. But when we're thinking about animals, we have a sort of a couple options. Is we can go the route where the, it's 100% proportion kind of for the body. But another option is that we actually could make it seem like, this animal character that we have is sort of like a human characteristic. So we could go through that 50-50 with the body proportion versus the head proportion, or the 60-40 or the 70-30, right? So that's an option. Another option is that keeping those proportions in mind, the body itself could be more like animal characteristics in terms of where their legs are like. And, of course you have to have tails if it's, a particular animal and things like that. So there's, three different ways how we could approach perhaps one animal. So you can decide kind of how you want to go with it. One thing I want to point out too, though, is whatever route we decide to go for our own characters, is that another sort of feature for Kawaii is in terms of like the body and the lines and the hands. So all of the lines are very roundish. So in terms of like the hands and the tails and the ears and everything, it's all very rounded, bubbly kind of like shapes. Okay. And very, very simple, very basic, right? If you do have some sort of details, maybe you could have a few claws, maybe, but very, very, very basic. Okay. So when we are, doing something like this, we want to really work on our resources. So for this project, I'm just going to show you an example as if if I was given a sloth as an animal and I was going to have to make a Kawaii character out of a sloth. This is the process that I would go through, and this is what I would want you to try. So Pinterest is really, really lovely for this. And again, what's nice being at home is that we all have access to Pinterest. So even if you're not using it like on your phone, you could easily just go to Pinterest.ca here on your Chromebook, and then you can start a board. So what I want to do is I wanted to gather resources. So if my animal was going to be sloth, so I don't know, I kind of know what a sloth looks like, but what I did is I saved a bunch of images of a sloth. Look at this face. I want to look at these characteristics. When I'm even looking at the sloth, it almost seems to me that they're already like a Kawaii like animal ready to go. But I want to sort of like base it as much as I can on that and take some of the key features from that. I want to look at different poses of what the sloth does, right? So when I start to think about the body and how I'm going to put it together, what's natural, for a sloth, and any sort of other details, like what do they eat, where do they live, right? Because that will help for me, like in different scenarios, right? I could have sloth eating flowers, bananas, hanging out in trees, eating leaves, right? So I've made a board, and here's an example here. So I gathered all my resources. And the next part is, this is really important. In your sketchbook, you just got to jot down and brainstorm some of the personalities. And you need to think about who your audience is. Is this something, is this a character that would be for little kids? Or is this going to be like a character that's going to be for adults, or sort of like more of an artsy kind of crowd? Like who is your audience? And that's going to dictate everything else. I don't know, what kind of name, would. what could my character's likes or dislikes be, where they live, what's their personality, what kind of hobbies do they have, who are their friends be, etc., etc. So, for example, look at that face. For my character of my sloth, I've decided his name is going to be Brad. He likes sleeping. He likes hanging in trees. He likes hugs. He doesn't like plastic. He doesn't like deforestation, right? Which would obviously be an issue for sloths. And he doesn't like broccoli, only because they resemble kind of like what trees look like. And he doesn't like that they're cutting down. I don't know. I was just trying to think of something. He lives in a treehouse in the forest. In his personality, I put that he's patient and that he's needy, but he's welcoming. His hobby is he's an activist. He likes hugging friends, and he's a vegan. And his friends, are squirrels and birds, because I thought, they were hanging out in the trees and stuff like that. And Elon Musk, just because I guess, I don't know, he was good for the environment. And I don't know, this different sort of side to him. He's not so boring. Okay, so that's just kind of what I brainstormed and I came up with. But that's going to help me in terms of, just things that I could draw him doing, places I could be, he could be in, different poses he can be in, maybe different clothes he could wear, things like that. So the third step then is that you're just sketching, right? I'm going to use all of my resources. I'm going to look at those adorable pictures of the sloths, just so I can look at the key features and characteristics of what a sloth is. I am not drawing a realistic sloth by any means, right? But using like sort of simple round shapes, right? Using the Kawaii aesthetics of proportion and facial expressions, right? The way that simple eyes and where the mouth and the nose and everything go, and combine it with the characteristics of an animal. I'm kind of got to fool around with like different ways I can do the hair and different ways I can do the faces until I can come up with, a bunch of different ideas and find one that I sort of like. So again, if while you're sketching and you think that you got the face, just remember that, the body and the poses and everything that you're putting this sloth in are all very basic, all very rounded. If you want to take up a notch and put, your character in different outfits, right? There's so much, think about what kind of outfits they possibly could wear, but all very, very simple. But you don't have to necessarily put outfits on them, right? So you're just going to keep drawing, of course, my sloth in the tree, and he likes reading, but he fell asleep reading because he likes to sleep. He's in his tree house, etc., right? Just really, really basic sketches just with your character, right? And again, you could put the little, blushy cheeks on your character. You just, you're not freaking out about this. You're just relaxing and brainstorming and having fun, right? Now, I do have a bunch of different Pinterest links for different poses, different outfits, different hairstyles that I have all there for you that could help you. Again, these are just more resources on how you can make your character. So what I want you to do is you're going to go through those 3 steps that I just demonstrated for you, designing one of the Kawaii animals below in the list below. So you can either pick a cat or an owl or a ladybug. Yes, I know it's not a ciliate animal. A bear, a turtle, a bee, a bird, or the fox. You can decide to have it 100% of the character. You can have it, like more like a human characteristics or more of an animal characteristics, whatever you decide to do. So you're going to pick one of those characters. And the first one is that you're going to gather your resources on Pinterest, right? So like I did with a sloth, a whole bunch of different types. So you know what they look like, you know what they eat, you know where they hang out. Number 2, in your sketchbook, you're going to brainstorm different personality ideas, keeping in mind who your audience is, right? And step 3 is you're just going to sketch and sketch and sketch. And then when you're done, you're going to, of course, post them on your class Google Slides. And I'm just asking for, just rough ideas. So here are the different links to my Pinterest pins for different hair, clothing, different poses. But again, you're picking one of the animals. And this is the link here that you're going to be posting your sketches on so we can all sort of share. And so this is a practice one. This is to have fun with. Okay?